Hello, everybody. Mestre Sukuri coming to you from Tokyo, Japan. Today, I have a very special guest, Contramestre Vaqueiro, who is right now in Croatia. But actually, I'll let him introduce himself, tell us what he does with Capoeira, how he began Capoeira, and a little bit about himself. Contramestre, please let us know who you are and what you do.
Salve, salve, mestre. Hello, everybody. My name is Vaqueiro. Usually, when I'm not in Croatia, I live and teach in a small city near Munich, Germany, and I also do work internationally on workshops and with friends in the Capoeira community. I was born in Germany in 1983, and I grew up in a very small village near the Alps. I practiced competitive martial arts very soon. I started very soon at the age of 5, and it was mostly judo. And only in my puberty, I discovered capoeira at about 15 years old. And I started training with Mestre Martinho Fiuza, who at that time was the teacher, the master of capoeira contemporânea in Munich. He's still there today, and he's a pioneer of the art. He started teaching in Europe, like opening his own academy in 1972. And it was under his guidance that I got my first education as a teacher, and I started teaching within the group in 2003. I opened my own group in a city nearby as well at the same time. And that puts me at 20 years of teaching in this year. I had my little anniversary.
Wow, fantastic.
And
It's funny, 1972 to open Academia. I was born in 1971, so it makes me feel very young. But you said you opened your own group, or under the same group as your master, or did you start your own group?
So we opened like a daughter group or a sister group in a city nearby, but it was all under our master's guidance, of course.
Was there a reason for that? Because I like to talk a lot about group dynamics in my podcast, especially how things do. As you know, we have the giant groups like Abadá, Muzenza, Cordão de Ouro, Senzala, and I could go on and on. And a lot of times, like for example, I actually came to Japan and I was part of a group, and because of just the financial expectations of me being a non-Brazilian teacher and being outside of Brazil made me, just put a really bad taste in my mouth, and I decided to go my own way. And that's why in 1999, I formed Capoeira Zoador here in Tokyo. So is it just a logistical thing, or do you feel that your way of doing things is a little different, or why is it a sister group and not part of your same group?
Well, technically it was part of the same group, so we all went under the same name. It was a sister group in the way that most of the decisions were with me, but I always reported to my master. And of course, he has a very strong personality, very strong values that, of course, once we started teaching, we were all also expected to adopt. So it was definitely part of his group. Back in the day, the group didn't really carry a name, given that he was one of the first to teach in Munich, and he had his own trademark in the way he taught and in the way he carried himself. Everybody knew who he was, and when you said, "Oh, I'm a student of Master Martinho," everybody knew like exactly what he was about. And so it was only later that we adopted this name, Capoeira Contemporânea, that he coined for his group.
Okay.
And so we that was in 2003, and we had a falling out in 2011. So back then I left the group and I continued my work in a bit more of a democratic fashion. So we decided we would go along until we find another master that was suitable for us as a group. And we also gave the group a new name, which was then Capoeira Ligando Mundos. which was basically based on the philosophy that we have that capoeira has always been a tool to improve your living conditions, your life, your personal experiences, and that it has always been a tool to connect not only to each other but to connect to your history, connect to people's roots, connecting basically. And
Oh,
that was in 2011.
is there a certain reason you left? Like I said, I like to talk to people. This podcast that I do is generally for non-Brazilian capoeiristas. As a person who's been
Yes.
doing capoeira for a long time, you know that the socio cultural expectations between non-Brazilians and Brazilians sometimes have a lot of friction. So I like to talk about this because after I wrote my first book, a lot of people started emailing me from around the world. Oh, Master, I didn't even know people. One guy one capoeirista from Germany emailed me, goes, "Look, your book, Master, was amazing. It had a lot of things that happened similar to me." And I said, well, because it's kind of endemic to capoeira, certain aspects. Was there something that finally, you were like, okay, that's it? Or was it just kind of, it grew into that?
So I cannot really speak for my master, of course. And in fact, the falling out we had was not from my side. I would have continued probably a student, a loyal student. I called myself a bit of a soldier back then as well, because I really adopted the principles and the ideas of the group and of my master. So for me, it was not a question whether I would leave the group or not, but it's this kind of, I guess some things have built up within our relationship, that my master, he was not a person to talk about it a lot, or when he talked about it a lot, he played it down a bit. So we never got really into hashing everything out. And at some point, he
That
just
makes
said, "Well,
sense.
Vaquero, I think it's better if you leave the group." And after that, we had a bit of a silence in between, between us. But now we are back at a good friendship and a good relationship. And for me, that was one of the big steps recently in the last years to really make peace and to understand better what led to that decision, which for me, I think has been, in the end, maybe he planned it that way. It has been a blessing in disguise, of course, as always, when you overcome some obstacles. I think for any capoeirista, sometimes in the end you find like, oh, this was growing pains, but it was necessary.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I have a lot of similar experiences. Today, I'm very lucky being a non-Brazilian and, blessed with the title of master. I try to do the best I can to lead and also to really help guide other people who are involved in capoeira, because capoeira is a very interesting art. It's not something that like you just do, like, for example, kata and fight, like in karate or Brazilian jiu-jitsu. You go to the mats and you have the cultural side, the social side. There's so many things going on with capoeira that it's incredible. Before we move forward, I do want to mention Contramestre Vaqueiro has an incredible CD. I've played it several times in my academia. I'm a big fan of his music, and anyone who knows me knows I'm very critical of capoeira music and Brazilian music because of my background here. And this CD is fantastic. I recommend it. Could you please give us the title, when you released it, and what did you find most valuable and most challenging in making the CD?
So the CD was released in 2012 for the first time. We recently released it on Spotify and iTunes, just simply because I'm slow with this kind of digital stuff. I'm still learning. The name of the CD is Numa Roda do Tamanho do Mundo, in a roda of the size of the world, which was basically reflecting on what my discovery of the capoeira world was at the time. I was starting in about 2008, 2009 to teach internationally. I spent a few weeks at a college in the US teaching capoeira. I spent some time in other places. And for me, it was just discovering how capoeira is different in so many parts of the world. And I started writing the songs in 2008, 2009. We recorded in 2010. And then shortly after we left the group, we didn't finish the work, so we continued this separately, and then we released it under our new name in 2012. And it was the start of another passion, is just which is music and discovering the many expressions capoeira can take. And
Fantastic.
it was yeah.
I'm gonna have to say my favorite song is, of course, "Señor No Bache No Negro." I really like that song on the CD. Was it all self-produced, self-organized, and did you write all the lyrics?
So the lyrics, I have 2 songs that my students wrote that I just went over to see that grammar and pronunciation is correct. Of course, I also make mistakes, so I'm sure there's plenty of errors in pronunciation and everything. But yeah, the rest of the songs were written by me, and we had a good friend of ours who produced it professionally. Well, did the final mixing and helped us with recording the voices. And
yeah, I think it's an excellent
job.
job. It was really well done. I'm very critical of a lot of the capoeira music because a lot of times it's just people growing up doing, and they're not really understanding like the just simple things about music. And I thought the so you guys, I recommend it. Just look under Vaqueiro. The title again, I'll give it to you guys right now, is Uma Roda no Tamanho do Mundo. Or is that right? Is that correct for
Yes.
Yes.
Take
a look on that. I'll put it in the link when I put this on Patreon and everything. The song is really good. It's got a nice, calming yet exciting vibe to it. Congratulations, because I know how difficult it is to record and to organize and to get people together to practice. A lot of people don't understand how much behind the scenes work actually goes into it. Like I joke with my students, right? Like when the kids get like too not motivated, I say, guys, look, your mom only pays me for me to open the door on time and to close it on time. Everything outside of that comes from love. So a lot of the kids are like, when I recorded a song with my kids, they were like, wow, that was a lot of work. So cool. I would have to ask you, right? Since you've been doing capoeira for so long, when did you start? In 2003?
I started in 1989.
1989.
1998. Sorry.
Okay, 1998. Oh wow, that's fantastic. I came to Japan in 1999. I feel so old today, but okay. What would you say were some of the biggest differences between capoeira when you started and capoeira as you see it today? Of course, there's a maturity, a different level. You're no longer an alumno. You're a contramestre. You're respected around the world. But again, as a non-Brazilian, there will always be challenges and differences that we perceive, especially culturally. As me as a Mexican American, you as a German, we're gonna experience things differently, time and place. So, what would you say is the difference between now and then?
So what I see now when I compare it to back in the day is identities changed a lot, which means for me, back in the day, there was like this big groups, mega groups, and I was always part of a small group. Back then, I was with my master, who at maximum maybe had like 150 students, but that was no comparison. So we always had a good connection to the Velha Guarda, basically. So my master was close friends with Mestre Accordion, with Mestre Camisa Roxa, all those people who really spread capoeira all over the world. And we also had the opportunity to go to their classes and to go to the workshops and to go to Brazil to train with them. And it was a different feeling because the identity was different. It was a very strong, like, group identity. People inherited from their master, or you're this group and you do this and you do this and this. And I think nowadays people tend to be much more individualized, and the solutions that we have also for like being a student, being a disciple in capoeira are different now. So since 2016, I have found my master in Master Moy, who is now living in Germany, who is a native of Sobradinho in Brazil, near Brasilia. And we had this solution very soon that he would adopt us as students, but he didn't necessarily ask us to join his group. So I was a bit weary because it's always this padrino situation is a difficult topic. And I have passed through the hands of a padrino with Mestre Xuxu in between Mestre Martinho and Mestre Moy. So I was always looking for someone to teach me. And I'm still looking for knowledge. But this teacher-student relation and this teacher-disciple relation, as you like say, student is a different thing than a disciple, right? Aluno is not the same as disciple. And with Mestre Moy, we found not only me, but two close friends of mine, Contramestre and Professor Tito. We are all three of us, we are from different backgrounds. One is from Brazil, one is from Croatia, and one is from Germany. And we all found one common master in the same person who didn't ask us to, okay, you have to join the group, inherit my identity. You already formed your identity. You already have your own strong group identity. You have your values. I just want to see if they align with mine. And once we had this long conversation, we passed through this process with Mestre Moy. This now he has not 3 students, he has 3 disciples from all over the place. And for me, this showed me how valuable this real interaction with your teacher is if you're willing to give yourself to that. And this is something that I think back in the day, there's a big difference. Many people were just alumnos. They came, they paid for the class. So what I heard from stories, even before my time, I know a few people who started Capoeira in 82, 83. They said it was different. It was a hobby. It was fun. It had a certain appeal to a certain group of people. And that was like, pastime activities and fun. And now I think people are much more, maybe not more serious, but more dedicated in a way that they approach it in a differently. People approach it in a way like, how can I construct my life around it? How can I dedicate myself? What do I have as a person, as a Brazilian, as a non-Brazilian, to contribute that is uniquely mine? I think I see that much more now, especially in Europeans who have a bit more of confidence now, or in non-Brazilians who have more confidence in actually contributing to capoeira. And now it's much more of a international phenomenon, worldwide phenomenon.
Let me interrupt you just really quick so I can give the listeners an idea. Padrinho means godfather or padrinha, godmother. So there's a movement in capoeira for a lot of people who have left or left their groups or whatnot. For a while, there was something called padrinho, which is it's not your direct master, but it's somebody that you really feel close connection to. For me, at my age, I just turned 52. This padrinho feeling for me has really become strong with Mestre Boagenchi, and it's somebody who I relate to a lot, and someone who I talk to all the time, and who I really felt has made a great relationship with me. And it's interesting as we talk about, to learn from someone. We're always learning. And I think it's interesting because a lot of times I see that of course, that person might have a lot more capoeira experience and knowledge, but I feel at one point, like graduating with a PhD, when you're a master, let's say, or a contramestre, you get your PhD, you're learning, but you're not learning, you're evolving. Like when you go to college, you don't keep learning after college, you keep improving what you've learned on. You build on this basic education. And one thing in capoeira that I felt's always been really interesting, there's no basic education system, even though people say there is because there's so many things to do. It's only experience time. And a lot of times this padrino relationship grew as an alternative to having, like, being part of a group. And I think it's a good thing at times, but at times I also see where a lot of non-Brazilians especially want to get a padrino or padrinha so they can validate their capoeira. I see that a lot in Asia. One thing what's interesting that you'll probably know, because Contramestre Vaqueiro goes to Thailand a lot. You work with special needs kids, is that, or
yeah, I offer like individualized education solutions, basically.
Okay, so it's a very specialized skill, and as you know, I've been living in Asia for over most of my life now. I lived in Korea, the Philippines, and all that. And the one thing that you rarely come across here that I came across all the time in the United States and in Europe is here there are no Brazilians. And it's interesting. And let me explain this why. Because in Japan, the only way to get a visa to be here, if you're from Brazil or from another third world country, is if you have a connection to the blood, like your descendant, at least third generation Japanese. And generally, those people in Brazil were of Japanese descent. Then they tended not to do black things. So they tended not to do. So most of the Brazilians that I've met here are all, you wouldn't know that they were not Japanese. Like you would probably be like, oh, whoa, that person's speaking Portuguese. And that's generally it. Or they're married to somebody. So you rarely have, like, you don't have a dozen non Japanese descent Brazilians teaching capoeira in Asia. As far as I know Shiru, who's in South Korea, and then everybody else is Korean teachers. So it's a very different dynamic because of the way that people can get visas, go back to Europe, and the EU visa, being descended from Portuguese or Italian descent. It's incredibly different. So one thing I see here is I see my role here as a padrino as best I can, not in an official capacity, but as best as I can be. So I think it's an interesting thing to talk about that padrino. But guys, sorry, this is Contramestre Vaqueros, so we're gonna let him go because you guys know how I am. Okay, what if you could change something? Go back. Let's say you go back to that you're not even a vaquero. You're not a cowboy. You're just a little boy with your little cowboy hat on. Vaquero means cowboy, so I just wanted to say that. And you could go back and you could have an idea of what you would do different or what you think you did correctly and you would do it more. What would you give advice to people, to young capoeira people?
So I think since capoeira has changed so much, the advice that I would give to myself probably back then is a different one that I would give to people today. For myself, I think I was part of the generation that we saw a movement and we trained it and we trained it and we trained it, and then we did it or we heard ourselves doing it. So I think for people who want to, really go into capoeira is to consider the physical, not physical limitations, but the process it takes to learn. So to really look up a teacher or maybe even like a PE teacher who can help you prepare your body in ways of stretching. So I have many students now who are 45 years and older who start capoeira. I completely had to rearrange my training, right? So I'm learning always also, I'm learning how to teach different age groups. And 15 years ago, I had like the 20-year-olds that, you tell them to do something and they're just like, whatever. And they just flip or I don't know. And now with teachers, with adults at 45 and older, you face different challenges because it's not only physical, but it's mental things as well. Like people build up certain blockages for singing or moving and so I think for anybody who wants to learn capoeira now is to really dive into the subject and see like, what can I do to make the path easier for myself, so I don't carry like long-term injuries or that kind of thing. And for people nowadays also, I think it's important to just see where you can align your own interests, your own joy, your own alegria, felicidade with your with the roots and with the necessities that capoeira brings with it, because it's not a free-for-all, it's not freestyle all the time. And I think we need to find a way to align both traditions and the important things that we carry along with capoeira with our own personal needs to make it sustainable.
That's fantastic. So that leads me to one question that I ask everybody. What do you find as the most challenging as a non-Brazilian capoeira instructor?
Ooh, that's a difficult question.
Now, I know what I want to say is this platform that I'm doing is because I'm a very straightforward person. I've always been this way. So I'm not saying talk bad about people, but if we don't bring the situation to light, because I know there's a lot of people who've said, like, there's difficult things. We don't have to use negative words in the situation, but if you have something to say, I mean, feel free to say, look, I feel this, because it's important. Because if we felt this, then probably other people feel it. And that by hearing other people's experiences, then people get blessed with like, okay, it's not just me. You're not alone in the world. And to commit to capoeira, because you're not committing to people, you're committing to capoeira. So go ahead.
So in my own personal experience, I always felt, despite everything, despite the trouble I had, or despite the falling out I had with my first master and with teachers, conflicts that might arise with teachers in general or capoeiristas, I always felt like my generation, and maybe the ones before that as well, I cannot speak for everybody, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, so to speak, right? We have a lot of responsibility to carry around, and sometimes this clashes with the person's individual wishes to realize a dream, to record a CD, for example. So in my experience, I had somebody not tell me to my face, but tell somebody else that I'm very close with, well, what does a non-Brazilian want with a CD? He's not even a master. What can he bring to capoeira? And that was a master of great renown in Rio de Janeiro. So it was a big, back then it hurt me. But I think for non-Brazilians in general, I think we just need to get a good grasp of the responsibility we have. And at the same time, not let go of what you want to bring to capoeira and what you want. Do you think you can uniquely add to the value of capoeira in your lifetime? So it's a balance thing.
I always told this story. I was once at a party, and I think it was in where was it? I want to say it was in Europe when I was in England, and two Brazilians, one was darker than the other, and he had told the other one, "You're not dark enough to teach capoeira." I don't know if it was a joke or not, but you're laughing because you hear this kind of stuff, and you're just like, "Are you serious? This is insane. Why would you?" I mean, racism is positive or negative. A lot of people in capoeira use racism. I see it all the time in what we call a positive way, which means you because the person is Brazilian or because the person is darker skinned, then it's that authenticity. Yeah. And one thing that I think I'm very lucky because I've always been, for about 10 years, I cut off all Brazilians many years ago because I just didn't want to deal with them, any capoeira Brazilians, because it was so difficult to deal with them with all the racism and you're everything, no matter what happened, any conversation, even if I was right, came back, but you're not Brazilian, but we Brazilians do it different. And I'm like, but if you put like a Baiano and someone from the south of Brazil, you're going to have two different aliens. You know what I mean? So it's, for me, early on, being someone aware of cultural anthropology, I've always understood people say that. I know the fallacy of saying those things. So I never let it bother me. But today it's funny because I started capoeira in 87, my first ginga, and it was really informal. So it's really hard for me to find somebody who's my age that has done capoeira as long and dedicated as much as I've done. So I can say, look, capoeira, we say now capoeira belongs to those who practice. So it's hard to find people who practice longer than me unless it's one of these older masters. But I think it's a very interesting thing. If you're into capoeira, just continue it. Don't ever give up, people. I love it. I've been doing it, and I'm fixing up the academia this week because in the future, I next 13 years till I'm 65, I'll do my best. After that, somebody can help me do this here, and I'll just, be padrino. But I'm enjoying Capoeira to the day I die, I think. Is there anything you'd like to share with us before we run out of time here?
I just wanted to pick up, you said something very interesting about this discourse on authenticity, right? Everybody tries to be more authentic by whatever means, either by skin tone or by lineage or by, there's a lot of ways where you can feel like you're more real than the other person. And I think this competition, who's more authentic, sometimes can take away from what's really important for us as teachers or as practitioners, is to keep the art alive and also to develop and evolve, right? So I know a lot of people who have fantastic work in capoeira. I'm close to a few fantastic capoeiristas from Israel, and they have their own methodology. They work very hard to really provide the best approach that is fitted to their society, because also capoeira in different places probably needs different things, right? You have different societies with different needs. So, give an example. They say Germans don't dance. That's or we don't sing. So yeah, Germans, they don't like to sing that much, and when they dance, it mostly looks like like when you rock a refrigerator. It's not really. But at the same time, once they open up, it can be very, very different for them. And I think this authenticity competition takes away from that. You don't have to be Brazilian to play capoeira. You don't have to do it the same way. If you find something that works for you, and you have a teacher that can cater to your needs and cater to that, say, needs of the community, that's fantastic. And yeah, we run the risk that we say, no, we're going to do it all by ourselves, all differently. It's the other side of the spectrum. It's the other extreme. But I think it's super important to sometimes let go of this, what is authentic enough, and just say, this is me, this is us, and this is, we value the traditions, but we also have to move forward in a way that is healthy and works for our community.
That's very important, right? I remember Mestre Acordeon had a video, and it talks about how capoeira adapts to different places. I highly agree with that, but I also believe that it's very important to maintain a very core essence of that. I don't want to say Brazilian capoeira anymore. I want to say that capoeira, for example, if I go to a restaurant and I eat something and I know what it's supposed to taste like, for example, salsa, right? And if it tastes sweet and there's no spice, I know it's not. Right? Some people might like that, but I always worry about not authenticity, but sustainability of the roots. You know what I mean? We've seen a lot more people like going back to kind of like the old school, people singing ladainhas, people getting more back to, finding the old masters. And I think that's a fantastic thing to do.
Absolutely.
It's also important to support those old masters who've done so much for capoeira. But yeah, no, it's been a fantastic interview. I want to say thank you again. Ladies and gentlemen, Contramestre Vaqueiro coming to us from Croatia. If you're ever in Munich, just look him up. Definitely check out his CD. I know you'll love it as much as I do. Guys, thank you for joining us today. Remember, as you support us here on Patreon, I'm able to do more and more. And hopefully when Contramestre Vaqueiro swings through Asia next time, he can stop by and visit me here and check out the new upgraded Capoeira Zoador Academy. Thank you very much, Contramestre.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the time.